Kia ora everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Keith, I'm 52, I live in a beautiful country called New Zealand and I've been a carnivore for 1 year now. I'd like to find out how everybody is doing on their carnivore journey or on whatever journey you're on at the moment. If you want to put it down in the comments, I'll be sure to answer them. Just to let you know, I'm not a health professional, I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm definitely not a doctor. So all my information that I'm sharing at the moment is just my own experiences. Once I got onto carnivore, I thought to myself, this is great. I'm just going to carry on and I'm just going to do week by week. And as I carried on and as I enjoyed the food I was having, I started to realize that there was something else missing. So that something else for me was there was no one else to share this experience with. I was the only one doing it around me. At the time, I used the word very lonely, but I was willing to go through this by myself to take on the full experience of what carnivore is. And even till this day, I'm always happier when I have my carnivore foods. So I carried on and that thought came to me and I was like, I need others to talk to about this. I wonder if there's people out there. I mean, I'd been on YouTube, I'd been on live chats, I had listened in, I had chatted to people around the world and it was informative, but there was still something I was missing. So, when I was starting carnivore, I decided that I need a community. I need others to talk to, whether it was face to face or even online. I needed them. I absolutely needed to talk to others. So I went looking, throughout the internet, watched a few lives, had a listen to others, and seeing where they're going and other YouTube influencers that were doing their own group thing. So I had a look around, checked out a couple of places, and well, as I'm looking around, Bella from Steak and Butter Girl kept popping up through my YouTube recommended feed. I watched a few of her videos. I was still unsure because Bella's story is different to mine. Bella came from a vegetarian, vegan type diet and then went to carnivore. I came from a highly processed carb and sugar diet. I wasn't too sure whether the community was one for me, and so I decided, but how do I know unless I go in and find out? Bella was looking after a family member. I'll wait till she comes back. It would be nice to actually hear and listen to what she has to say. So I made my profile in SBG and I started up in there and I started commenting and giving a little bit about myself and asking questions, and there were a lot of people in there and I got a lot of responses and I was really happy about that. And I thought to myself, well, this is really interesting. I'm getting good information as far as I could tell. I'm getting people talking to me, even though it was still via texting or via a chat. It was still people sharing their experiences. While going through the SBG website, I happened to notice that they were having lives. So they were live streaming on Zoom. And I thought, I wonder if I can click into that. All I had to do was click on it. It would say on the Zoom page, do you want your camera on or off? Do you want your mic muted or on? And of course, being my first time on a Zoom call, I would have my camera off and my sound muted. So here I was in this first Zoom call with SBG. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening. The first coach I saw was Coach Raymond, and the second coach I saw was Coach Emily. Now here they were, to me, talking a language I did not understand. I was thinking to myself, what are they talking about? What is priming, right? This is a question that's asked all the time. And I was exactly the same. I was very doubtful about their program, I'm going to be honest. And I had my questions. And I was going to get my questions answered. And that's just who I am, I suppose. While we were on the Zoom call, and I had my camera off and my mic muted, I decided I was going to ask a question. Now, I can't remember exactly what the question was, but it had something to do with, I've only been eating carnivore for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. How can this way of eating help me? And I remember their response, these two coaches, Coach Raymond and Coach Emily. Their response to me was, that's a good question, but we need to hear more. You can just either type it in, but we would rather that you talk to us. Well, I ain't going to turn my camera on, but yeah, sure, I can unmute my mic. But because I had listened to some of what they had said, I felt like I could actually turn my camera on. And I felt like I needed to say what I needed to say and ask my question. That was the turning point for me. I was nervous, like anybody would. I was actually more scared than nervous because I was afraid of, I suppose, judgment. Judgment was what I was really afraid of, because I'd already started carnivore. I wasn't huge into it, and I was finding some great benefits. But here they were talking about something I didn't understand. And I thought to myself, the only way they're going to understand where I'm coming from is if I turn my camera on, I unmute myself, and share a little bit more about why I was asking this question. They were very welcoming to me, and for that I am very thankful, and I'll always be thankful, because it's hard enough just asking a question. It's even harder unmuting and leaving your camera off and asking and talking to the coaches. But what's really difficult was to have my camera both on, unmuted, and talking to the coaches, because I didn't want to feel like I didn't know what I was talking about, which I didn't. I really didn't know what I was talking about because I was all new to this. When I found out their stories, how many years they had been doing carnivore, how many years Bella had been doing carnivore, I thought, so much experience. And they've been through very similar issues with health as I did, and that just blew me away. You don't know how someone can be unless you've walked in their shoes. And when I listened to these coaches, I could hear so much similarities in their stories and how they recovered from it just by being carnivore. I've got to keep going. I've really got to keep going. But part of their protocol was priming. And priming basically now like I said, I'm no coach. It would be best to get this information from the coaches themselves. That's my perspective on it. But in a very basic way, from what I believe it to be, priming is bringing your body back to nutrition, giving your body the food that it actually needs to heal itself. And the priming side of it, at a minimum, eating wise, is 3 meals a day, and you can have snacks too, plus snacks. So you can have 2 snacks. So if you're feeling a little bit hungry after the first meal, then you can put a snack in there, although it has to be carnivore. And with those 3 meals a day and the 2 snacks, well, the 3 meals at the very least, you are eating to what was referred to as comfortably stuffed. So that's eating well. And you did this 3 times a day. Not only did you do this 3 times a day, for maybe at least 2 weeks, especially if you're like me and you're a beginner, and all your life you have literally starved yourself. And what I mean by starved myself is starved myself of the nutritious meals like carnivore, the meats, the eggs, the butter. I was eating highly processed food like carbs and sugars. And that just made me hungrier and hungrier. So my body was storing my fat instead of using it as fuel. Now, this is just all my interpretation of it all, so take it with a grain of salt. And I'm just sharing how things worked for me. When they said to me to do that, I was so against it, because I thought to myself, how am I going to lose weight? Which was my primary goal, was to lose weight, because I thought by losing weight, I'm going to feel happier, I'm going to feel healthier, I'm going to look better, and that's going to be my happiness. But I was wrong. So when they started describing this protocol to me, it confused me. I had my questions, I had my doubts, and I got all this information. I asked them a whole bunch of questions. Like I said, I had my doubts about it. But it took 2 months of actual listening to them and for all the information that they were saying to actually sink into my brain, into my mind, into my thoughts, into could this really work for me? And that same question comes up. How would I know if I don't try it for myself? That always comes up for me. Bella came back. Everything went back to how it was before, which was great, because now I had to make a decision on whether everything they were saying was going to be helpful for me. The question I had to ask myself is, should I join up with the monthly subscriptions? Because these cost money, and that's fine, because I was starting to save money, right? Save money on my food. And in my mind, there was no better way to spend what little bit of savings I had made from my food onto a subscription with the steak and butter gang. And it worked out, like, price-wise. And you got to remember, I live in New Zealand. The dollar isn't strong here, so it was going to cost me a little bit extra than what the quoted amount was. But I had to think to myself, here I am saving money on carnivore. I'm going to spend it to keep myself on carnivore. And so I did. I got into the subscriptions, the monthly challenges, and started my journey. So now I had access to calendars and what a calendar looked like for the month. And that was through their Chisel program. And I started there. And in the Chisel program, they have everything in written form that you need to know. And that worked for me because I knew what was coming. I knew how to plan food-wise. I knew how to plan life-wise. It literally gave me a future to look forward to because I had no doubts that carnivore was good and it was doing me well. But the way that I was doing carnivore wasn't right. You see, when I was doing carnivore, because I was so satiated with the food I was eating, I went from a couple of meals a day down to one meal a day. Now, one meal a day might actually work for some people. It would work in their life if they have a very busy life. But for me, I found when I had that one meal, I would end up eating a lot in that one meal. Because by the time the 24 hours had rolled around, or whatever the amount of time was, 18 hours, I was starving. Or in my mind or my body was wanting the food, wanting the carnivore food. And so I'd eat more in the one meal than I probably should have. But according to what was being shown on the calendars and the way that they were teaching us and the protocols and the priming, it was better to eat more meals in a day, 3, and actually eat them till you're comfortably stuffed. And I didn't get that. I seriously didn't get that. But what I did was I followed the process. I followed the calendars. That's not easy for everyone to do. At the time I was able to. And I gained a lot of knowledge from just following the calendars. It was so helpful. When I think back to it now, the calendars were the game changer for me. Joined a subscription, I've joined a community, and now I have access to the calendars. So I followed them pretty much on point. One of the first things I wanted to do before I started the calendars was to weigh myself. I was still stuck in the weight side of things, right? I wanted to lose weight. But I had listened and I thought, I'm going to use it as a marker. I'm going to use what I weigh before I start doing the priming protocol and then the feasting and then the fasting and the different levels that are available on the Chisel program. Before I do those, I want to know how much I weigh. But I made a deal with myself. I thought, right, you can weigh yourself before you start. I thought it was a fair enough thing to do. Following the calendar pretty much on schedule, and like I said, I had weighed myself, but I wasn't going to weigh myself again until after the 3 months were completed. The 3 months included levels 1, 2, and 3. You get to test out whether you've primed enough or eaten enough, but there's a point when your body says to you, I'm good. Like seriously, I don't need to eat anymore. And I reached that point after 2 weeks of priming. So I followed the calendar pretty well. And on the calendars, they gave specific times of when you can eat. They would literally build up your fasting muscle. And they did it gently on, as far as I felt anyways, they did it very gently on the fasting side of things. Because the protocol, simply put, is feasting and fasting as far as I perceived it. So if you ate well, then you would fast well. And that's the type of thing I had no knowledge of. I didn't know these things by going to the Zoom course and asking all sorts of questions. And then talking to the coaches over the Zoom course. Things started, in my mind, started clicking together like a puzzle. I had a whole bunch of puzzle pieces, and I was trying to find the first puzzle, which the first puzzle for me was being carnivore and starting that. And then other little pieces of the puzzle I started finding and putting together, and the picture started getting bigger and clearer. So here I was. asking all these questions, doubting what the coaches were saying, but every time I'd come back to them, I'd have to say, what you said happened for me at the very least. A couple of words that I would hear all the time was trust the process. But it's all dependent on the individual's journey, the individual's health issues, and what the individual wants. And so I literally followed the calendars, had really good experiences with the community, with the coaches, and then with Bella bringing the challenges back. I decided I was going to go into that too because I needed to find out all the information possible for me to make a better judgment of what I was doing with the knowledge that I had. So I hope these videos have been helpful for you. I hope that by me sharing, you're able to just get a feel for how my journey's been so far. Just to let you all know, the original video that I sat down and talked in was about an hour long, and I didn't really want videos to be that long on my channel, so I'm editing them down to about 15, maybe 20 minutes or less. So until I see you again, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay carnivore. Aroha nui whānau.